Hey everybody, welcome back to week 2 of the 4-week Christmas special we've got going on here. Tonight's episode, I wanted to focus predominantly on school, as most of you would know. Christmas is coming up, New Year's coming up, people are going off on break, and right about this time, I know a lot of us have midterms and tests we're working on and grades we're trying to finalize. And with that being said, I want to draw attention to the title, which is what or who defines you. And you're probably like, Bella, what do you mean? Like, what? Who defines me? What do you mean? What defines me? Well, by the end of this episode, you will find out. And diving in, I'm gonna start by asking, are you thinking like an F or are you thinking like an A? And you're probably thinking, what is this corny question? But listen, if you were going into something, and this could be anything, whether it be a test, assignment, a job, your relationships, everything. This can get broader and broader because while the question itself is in reference to grade performance in school, this concept is something you can carry with you into everything in your life. And, feel free to adjust the question to your circumstance. So I'm going to use my circumstances as of recently to help you guys see my point with this question. So at the moment, I have a D in one of my courses, which for, just FYI, very unusual for me. Over the last 2 unit tests, I flunked, regardless of the fact I've studied and gave it my best, and now I have a midterm and a brand new unit test I have to take in the same day in this course over the next week. What would you do if you were me? Well, we could complain and stress out to the point of no return. I could cry about it. I could go on and on about how there's no way I could do this, or I'm gonna fail, and blah, blah, blah. Or I could think like the success I want to achieve. I could continue to do my best and study and take advantage of every resource I can use, and I can say, I'm gonna ace this. I'm gonna do great. I'm prepared. I did my best. I'm gonna finish strong, and I'm proud. And this is thinking already like an A student. And now, I'm not gonna sit here and deny that I haven't thought like an F. I certainly have countless times, and I'm sure many of you have as well. And this is nothing to be ashamed over. This is natural and inevitable. At one point or another, you'll feel like an F or not have the confidence to think like the success you want, or in this case, an A. The idea with this concept is that whether you do or do not feel like you're going to reach your goals or get success, the first step to trying is setting your mind to it. Sure, you can make a fancy vision board and write the goals you want to make, but if you go on after thinking all the time about your failure or your future disappointments or the fact that you're not going to succeed, or you're down talking yourself all the time and saying, I'm not enough, or I'm not blank enough, or I'm not intelligent enough, or whatever you want to fill in that I'm not enough category, or you aren't XYZ, and so on, you're just feeding yourself poison, your brain poison, and you're not going to succeed. There's been times I've felt so unconfident, and regardless, I've sat and prayed over certain things I've had to do, or tests I've needed to pass, and I've said, Lord, please give me strength and knowledge. Give me the wisdom I need and the understanding I need to get through this. Please help me to retain the information I need to retain, and help me to get a good grade, or help me to get an A on this test. And, after that, I'll typically go on and thank him about the things I'm grateful for, the things I do have right now. And I try to stay mindful. And, by this point, I don't worry or stress anymore because I know it's in the hands of God. In fact, there's even a verse, I believe it's James chapter 4, verse 2. It says, you have not because you ask not. So take that as you will. The truth is, you aren't always going to succeed, and you'll fail and make mistakes, but do not let them define you. Don't take what that stupid score says on the paper and say, well, I guess that's all I'm worth, or I'm just not blank enough, or I'm just not smart enough, or even compare yourself to others in the room that may be successful in this moment. I mean, I know we're all definitely guilty of that. And with that being said, we're all special and unique, and we're made in God's likeness. And you're probably thinking now, what does that mean? First, Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. So God created man in his own image. That's italicized, own. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Genesis chapter 9 verse 6. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God made he man. And if that is a little jumbled in your brain, English Standard Version says, for God made man in his own image. So, very straight to the point. You're probably thinking, why did I add this in? Like, how does this correlate? So, what I'm trying to get at here is we don't all think the same. Our brains are all wired differently. We have different strengths and weaknesses, and we have strong subjects and things we enjoy and just naturally succeed in, or we all have subjects and suits that we need to work on an extra amount harder in just to be successful. We all have our natural strengths and things we typically just have come easy to us, and are things that just don't always click immediately, and we have to really put more effort into it. And this is normal. And the point I'm making here is we're all unique and special, and we're all made in God's likeness, in his own image. It's not a mistake. And every single thing about you is not a mistake. Even if you do fail or you aren't doing so well, it's important to remember that that doesn't define who and what you are and the quality of you as a person. And you should go beyond what a score, like a number or, a silly letter grade says about you. And you're going to hear a lot more of this going forward. So moving forward, I definitely want to dive into and talk about taking breaks. Now I know during this time period, studying nonstop and locking in, and it doesn't always feel like an option to take a break and, have some rest. But I also want to say it is very crucial you take breaks. I know too many people, and in fact, I see students all over TikTok talking about school work-life balance and how they get no sleep because of homework and so on. And this is where I have to say priorities. Priorities. You must set your priorities. I don't care if you're taking all AP courses or DE courses. If you are staying up till 4 a.m. and expecting to wake up at 5 or 6 to start the new day, and you're telling me you're a quote-unquote academic weapon, or that you're having a hard time with scores and success, I'm absolutely not surprised, at all. On anybody's tier of priorities, number one on the list should always be God, but who's second? You. And anyone who says that's arrogant, you're also wrong. Plain and simple. Your health and well-being should not be on the expense of another person, a job, or even a class. You can't expect to do great things and thrive with 2 to 4 hours of sleep. That just isn't healthy, and it's being realistic here. If you're someone listening right now and you're thinking, it's just impossible for me to get more sleep or to do XYZ, maybe that's a sign you're juggling too much. Maybe it's time to reprioritize, to adjust, to make some changes. This is just so you can be the best you can be. I'm not sat here telling you how to live your life, but you can't be on the ball you can't be on top of things if you're barely functioning and your energy depends on caffeine or whatever else, I don't know, a substance, anything. Sometimes you have to make tricky sacrifices for the greater you. I know this is a tough idea, and I'm with you, because I was in the same spot many times, barely any sleep, drained. I was someone who'd say the same things, they just don't understand, I can't do that, I have too much to do, they just have it so much easier than me. And honey, if you're someone wondering why your schedule's so filled and you don't like it that way, change it. You're the one that made it. And I know some things you can't escape, and by all means, don't bail on commitments. Always keep your word and have integrity, of course. I'm not telling you to just drop all your commitments. However, in a greater picture, you have the ability to alter things in your schedule. Back when I was in this boat, I had to give up soccer. It was a hobby of mine, and I love to do it, but to do well in school, I needed to try very hard, much more than I would say average for people, and that's just, I guess, always how it's been for me. It's what happens. And on top of that, I do a series of extracurriculars, and last year soccer just wasn't in the question anymore, and hours of my time was soaked up, and I couldn't do it even though I really loved playing. And that's just an example from my personal experience, but that's not to say you can't come back to what you love or things you enjoy. Sometimes you just have to step back and give yourself a rest and more time for simply nothing in a busy schedule. You have to take care of yourself to take care of anything else, whether it be academics, family, a relationship, a hobby, a sport, the list goes on. With my example, just in case you feel a little disappointed, next year, before I graduate, I do actually plan to return to soccer since my plate will be much lighter academically, and I'm thrilled about it. So it just goes to show that you don't have to give up what you love. And in life, sometimes you just need to readjust and prioritize to be the best you can be. And on my last note, referring back to my beginning comment on sleeping habits, I will say I am not opposed to cramming. However, I don't recommend it, or staying up so late to get the work in. We're all human people. We're all students, and I'm not hating on the grind because I'm all about it. But I'm here in the middle with you, you know. But I mean, in a long-term application, you gotta do what's best for you. Sometimes that homework just has to wait. I don't care if the teacher says it's due tomorrow, or no, like you can't turn it in, whatever. I've played because I used to be such a stickler about it. I used to be such a perfectionist, and I've gotten to the point where it's like, sometimes that homework just has to be put on pause. Like sometimes you just need to go to sleep. I feel like I'm really pulling an Emma Chamberlain here. Like sometimes you just can't do your work. What is that like soundbite that Emma Chamberlain says? Like I'll put it in.
If you get no homework done one day because you just mentally can't do it, and you maybe even get an F, so be it. If you just couldn't do it, then you just couldn't.
I'm right there with her. Sometimes you just gotta do something for yourself. Like the homework can wait. You've gotta come first in your life, and you can't tend to other things if you're not even being able to tend to yourself. You just have to make sacrifices sometimes. And I'm not saying throw everything away. Just, I think you get the point. To clear this topic, I will say these verses? I will say these verses that apply to taking care of yourself and giving yourself rest in God too. Genesis chapter 2, verse 2. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Then following up in verse 3, and God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. And then and then going up into verse 8, it says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And, so of course he's talking about, the seventh day and him creating the universe. And with that section, in Genesis, even, look, like even God rests. Like, so before you start working yourself like a dog day and night, sit there and think like, hey, how am I doing? Like mentally, you know what I mean? How am I chunking things out? Am I feeling really tired lately? Do I need to take a rest day? Because God created the entire universe, and yeah, he's God, but on the seventh day, even he rested. So I don't know, maybe that's something to think about. And I hope this is kind of helpful if you're the kind of person that doesn't feel like resting is an option, or that if you rest, you're, lacking or being unproductive or missing something. Because sometimes the most productive thing you can do is rest. And I learned that a hard way in the past. So I really hope this sticks out for someone. Exodus chapter 20, verse 9, 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. And then verse 10, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God, and in it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. And verse 11, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed in it. This goes hand in hand. We're going to talk about laziness and procrastination. And this might stick out for a lot of you, and it's, again, calling myself out, but we need to hear this, so listen. So this is important. With giving yourself rest and not working your life away, it's also important not to rest too much. In other words, don't be a lazy so-and-so. I know procrastination is so insanely easy to achieve, but I'm just going to simply say it. Do it. that thing you need to do. Get up and do it now. Something that helped me a lot, and hindsight of helping myself, was to think about my future self, like me in a few hours or a few days. So I was thinking, if I do this now, then I can do XYZ later. So I would motivate myself to complete things by telling myself it'll help future me later, or then I can do this thing with my time later. And I'd stick to that. And this helped me to, really get up and be more productive and get things done quicker, because this is even a really great practice of self-love, I've learned, because you're building trust and an intimacy with yourself. You're keeping to your word and you're helping yourself. And why? Because you love you. You can take this thought process and apply it to other tasks too, and over time you'll feel better about yourself. And it's such a warming feeling to realize the little things taken care of, that I've been taken care of, because you start to feel a lot more independent and happy because you see that, and you almost think, hey, I don't need this person or this item to sort of get me through something or provide or love me, because look, I'm doing that right now all by myself. I'm happy and I feel loved. And this can go in great detail, but again, maybe that's for another time. But that kind of, I guess, quote unquote trick, but self-love mindset of doing things in the moment for your future self for that benefit was extremely helpful to me when I get into little ruts of procrastination or laziness. And, of course, if all else fails, scrolling a little through Pinterest or, a little TikTok motivation might help you too. I also just want to clear that topic off the table by mentioning Proverbs chapter 21, verse 25. The desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labor. And following in the book of Proverbs, chapter 18, verse 9, he also that is slothful in his work is brother to him that is a great waster. Wow, it's very blunt. And for the record, anyone who does not know, slothful means lazy. So think about that again and replace the word slothful in this verse with lazy. And I think those two verses speak volumes. I know it's easy to get validation and feel accepted or higher on the quote unquote hierarchy of self esteem when we do well in school or get great grades. And it's funny to think about how we as humans are wired that way, and how when we do things the way expected, we receive positive appraisal or we feel more confident and want to keep doing the same thing for praise or for acceptance. And studies show this time and time again. And even in animals, you say your dog does a trick, he gets a treat. He shakes your hand, he gets a treat. He rolls over, he gets a treat. Positive reinforcement proves this. And I'm not trying to get too scientific here or whatever, but I took a college psychology course last year, and for those who aren't sure what I'm getting at, the more I thought about validation and scores and in the education system, it just blew my mind. And for those who didn't notice my reference with the dog, it was also a small reference to classical conditioning, which is a study that took place with a bell and a dog's salivation. And I won't get into that now. And those who haven't heard or read about that little study or theory in the psychology are probably very confused right now. And if you'd like to look it up, you're more than welcome. But the point I'm trying to get at here is that even when we fail to achieve what is expected of us, we should not feel less, or lack of even. If others manage to make the benchmark, it is what it is. In fact, I think you should still reward yourself. Go celebrate. Get yourself a Starbucks drink. Get your favorite snack. Go out somewhere nice. Because even if the digital scoring or the report card says anything below an A or a number that you didn't hope for, if you wholeheartedly tried and put effort to the goal you wanted, in all of our books, it should say we won. We succeeded. And at the end of the day, what's done is done. All you can do is move forward and keep trying different ways or ideas to get further on the scale of what school defines success. And however, I can't stress enough that you should not define your own worth or intelligence or fitting for anything based off your IQ or school scores, because they do not define or determine the quality of you. Jesus does. He died for you because he loves you. And I believe that speaks volumes about your quality, much more than a sad little number or letter. When it comes to school, you play the game. You go by their rules and do what it takes, even if it can get a little unfair at times, which is frustrating from the education system. But don't take that with you to everything else in your life, because it won't serve you. Let God define you in Christ. He knows who you are, and so do you. Verse that fits really well for this is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 21. For he hath made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be the righteousness of God in him. And righteous meaning be acceptable condition to God, pure, have integrity. We're accepted, forgiven, cared for, loved, looked after, all these things and more in Christ. This is so significant. He is the only relationship in our lives that will truly never die. Now, again, while this is not, a guidebook or rule book to, how to never fail or do great in school all the time. However, it is a reminder, a very strong reminder, that whatever score you come out with in the end, or whatever GPA you have, or even what a person tells you are, or says what you are way more and above anything that anyone ever says to you, or what anything on a paper ever says to you, because we are so much more in Christ. And there's a series of verses, you can go on and on about who we are in Jesus, and I hope that's encouraging. Tips that I did give out in terms of, studying and thriving and being successful, I hope are helpful as well. I think it's very important to have a mindset, like I said, of, are you thinking like an F or are you thinking like an A? And you can adjust and rearrange that saying to anything in your life, I think. If you are holding a failure mindset, you're gonna fail. If you are keeping a successful mindset and you are telling yourself, no, I'm gonna get there, even when you feel nowhere near that, it's so insanely crucial. And then making sure to balance it out with rest, and then balancing that out with not resting too much and getting lazy. I think all of that just ties it together perfectly. And I hope that really answers the question you may have walked into in the title when you clicked and listened on this episode, of who and what defines you. With that being said, I hope this was motivational or even a tad helpful to those getting ready or currently taking exams. And, whatever that thing says at the end of the year, at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you're so much more. And you're going to do great and put your best effort forward, and you won in the end because you put your best foot forward and you did your best, and that's all you can do. And with that being said, I'm proud of you. Feel bad about yourself and enjoy the last bit of time you have in school for this first term, and make sure to really soak in the break and have a very Merry Christmas. I hope everyone enjoyed this week of the Christmas 4-week weekly upload that I've been trying to keep up with. Next week, we are going to be talking way more in mindset. We're going to be focusing on growth and New Year's resolutions, and I'm going to challenge and tackle how to reach attainable goals and, really pinpoint what you're expecting and what you want for yourself in 2024. I think that episode coming up, it's probably my favorite, and I think it'll be extremely beneficial to many. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys next week. Merry Christmas.